Donald Trump currently has a 64% probability of winning the 2024 presidential election, marking his strongest odds ever against Kamala Harris. This indicates that, at no point since the vice president entered the race, has she fared worse than her current standing. In this video, we will explore Polymarket's revised 2024 election forecast, along with state-by-state markets, to analyze the positioning of Harris and Trump on their paths to securing 270 electoral votes. The race between Trump and Harris has been highly competitive over the past 3 months, with neither candidate surpassing 55% until Trump began to gain momentum just a few weeks ago. Since that point, he has established a significant 28% lead in the betting markets. Looking at the electoral map, I have filled in the solid states for both candidates, which are areas where either Harris or Trump has a 95% chance or higher of winning. Our focus will now shift to the 17 most contested states, marked in gray, which will ultimately determine who will be the 47th president. We will begin by identifying the likely states for Trump, where he holds a 75% to 95% probability of victory. These states are expected to be more competitive than solid states, but still favor Trump significantly. Starting in the lower Midwest, we have Iowa and Ohio, both of which have Trump's odds of winning at exactly 94%. He has consistently led in these states throughout the year, and it is clear that he is on track to win Iowa and Ohio for a third consecutive time, having first flipped them in 2016 and then maintaining the same margins against Joe Biden in 2020. Moving down to the Sun Belt, Trump is also favored in Texas, a state he won by 9 points in 2016 and by just over 5 in 2020. The last Republican to win Texas with a solid margin was Mitt Romney in 2012. While it is unlikely that Trump will achieve a victory by 15 points or more in 2024, he can certainly win the state by a double-digit margin. Currently, he has a 94% chance of winning Texas, which is also his highest probability ever in this state. Despite a surprisingly competitive Senate race between Ted Cruz and Colin Allred, the presidential election in Texas will not be significantly affected. Trump is the clear favorite and is expected to achieve his largest victory margin yet in Texas. In Florida, we find another state where Trump is poised to break a personal record, largely due to the sharp shift of the state to the right since he first entered the political scene in 2016. When he was first elected president, Trump won Florida by just 1%. He then increased his margin in 2020, defeating Biden there by a larger margin than expected. This time around, Trump is likely to at least double his 2020 margin, with predictions suggesting he will win Florida by 7 to 10 points. The betting markets currently give him a 94% chance of victory, once again just under the 95% threshold. His odds in Florida are also at an all-time high, similar to Texas, and it is likely to remain a Republican state. Lastly, we'll look at Alaska, another state where Trump holds a 94% chance of winning, which is also on the verge of becoming solidly red. Trump's odds are increasing rapidly, making it clear that these 5 states will soon all be marked as dark red. The 2nd District of Maine is where Trump has a 92% chance of winning. With the solid and likely states filled in for Trump, he currently leads with 219 electoral votes. Next, we will color in the likely states for Kamala Harris, which are expected to be more competitive than the solid blue states, but where she is still likely to emerge victorious. We will start with New Mexico, where the vice president has a 91% chance of winning. This state was carried by Joe Biden in the last election by 11 points, although the race became competitive right before Biden dropped out after a poor debate performance. While New Mexico remains a competitive state and is the only state with a majority Hispanic electorate, Kamala Harris and the Democrats will hold on to it for now. Next, we head to Minnesota, where Harris's odds are influenced by her selection of Governor Tim Walz as her running mate. Prior to this selection, Trump had a significant chance of winning in a state that has not gone Republican since 1972. The fact that Trump's odds sit at over 10% is troubling for the Democrats, despite having their governor on the ticket. While Kamala Harris is still likely to carry Minnesota, her lead has shrunk to less than 4 points in the polls, a stark contrast to Biden's 7-point margin in 2020. Before continuing, over 70% of viewers are not subscribed, so please take a moment to subscribe for more content leading up to the November election. You can also join my Discord server for personal chats. The link is in the description below. Now, we will head to the Northeast to examine Maine, where Kamala Harris has an 87% chance of winning, while Trump sits at 14%. This state is not as competitive as it was earlier this summer, when Trump's odds climbed to 41%. Maine is a state Biden carried by a double-digit margin in the last election. But currently, while the race is tighter, Harris still holds the edge in terms of winning outright. Moving on, we have New Hampshire, where Biden won by less than half a percentage point in 2016 but defeated Trump by over 7 points in 2020. Today, Harris has an 85% chance of winning New Hampshire, although the race was quite close in the summer when Trump nearly took the lead. The state is expected to tilt in favor of Harris as the election approaches, so it will be marked as likely blue on our map. The final likely state for Harris is Virginia, where she has an 85% chance of winning and Trump has a 16% chance. Harris's performance in Virginia is concerning, given that Biden won the state by a double-digit margin just 4 years ago. The race has grown more competitive, with Harris leading by only 3 points, whereas Trump was actually ahead in the polling average before Biden dropped out. Trump can be competitive here, but his performance against Harris has been weaker compared to his earlier matchups against Biden. Virginia is expected to trend more Republican as the election nears, but for now, Harris has a slight advantage, and it will be marked as likely blue. Additionally, in the 2nd District of Nebraska, Harris has an 88% chance of winning. With the solid and likely states filled in for both candidates, Trump and Harris are now neck and neck, each with around 220 electoral votes, leaving 7 states remaining. We will now examine the last category of states, which are the lean states where either candidate has a 55% to 75% chance of winning. There are no tilt states on this map, indicating that every remaining state clearly favors one candidate. We will begin by identifying the lean Trump states, and this is where the situation becomes increasingly challenging for Kamala Harris. Although she currently holds a 7 electoral vote lead, that advantage is likely to evaporate quickly. Starting with Arizona, Trump has a significant 71% chance of winning. His odds are currently as strong as they were before Biden dropped out of the race. This suggests that despite the Democrats' efforts to replace their nominee, Trump is maintaining a commanding position in Arizona, a state he narrowly lost in 2020. In the polling data, Trump is leading by 1.6%, and Arizona will be leaning red. Next, we move to Georgia, another state that narrowly went to Biden in the last election, but Trump is set to reclaim it. The graph of Trump's chances in Georgia resembles that of Arizona. He holds a 70% probability of victory, which has surged even more in the past 3 days. Trump has consistently been ahead in Georgia, and as the election nears, his lead is expected to expand. Therefore, Georgia will also lean Republican on our map. Now, turning to North Carolina, Trump is favored with a 63% chance of winning. He previously carried the state by more than a point in 2016 and by nearly 2 points in 2020. Over the last few election cycles, North Carolina has shown a trend toward the Republican side, and Trump is expected to win there again in 2024. He leads by approximately 1.2% in the polls, indicating that he is likely to secure another victory in the Tar Heel state. Next, we will look at Wisconsin, where Trump currently holds a 59% chance of winning. Although there is limited polling data available, it is likely he will achieve a win again, just as he did in 2020. This is a state Biden narrowly won in the last election, and with the current competitive atmosphere, Trump's odds are gradually increasing, suggesting he could claim victory here as well. Shifting to Kamala Harris's lean states, we start with Michigan, where she has a 63% chance of winning. The race has tightened considerably in recent weeks, and while Trump and Harris have exchanged leads, the odds have shifted back in Harris's favor recently. Trump previously won Michigan in 2016 by a narrow margin, but lost it to Biden in 2020 by a larger margin. In terms of securing the state, Harris still maintains an advantage, though the contest remains very competitive. Next, we turn to Pennsylvania, where Harris also holds a 63% chance of winning. This race is becoming increasingly competitive, and we may not know the final results until all votes are counted. Trump is currently ahead in the latest polling by 1.5%, having lost Pennsylvania by 1.2% in the previous election after winning it in 2016. This state is another battleground where both candidates are close, but Harris remains favored for now. Lastly, we consider Nevada, where Harris has a 59% chance of winning. This is another state that Biden won by a substantial margin, and while Harris is favored, her lead is slim, only about 2% in the polling average. With these lean states accounted for, we see Trump leading Harris with 239 electoral votes to her 228. This means Harris has transitioned from a 7 electoral vote lead earlier to now facing an 11 electoral vote deficit. We have 3 states remaining on the map. We will start with Wisconsin, where Trump has a 59% chance of winning. Although polling data is limited, the potential for him to pull off another upset, similar to his 2020 performance, is strong. As Wisconsin is a crucial battleground, we will mark it as leaning toward Trump. Now we are left with the final 2 states. In New Hampshire, Harris has a 60% chance of winning, and in Minnesota, she has an even stronger position. Both states remain too close to call and could become competitive in the coming weeks. New Hampshire is trending red, making it a key state to watch as November approaches. With these states accounted for, Trump is ahead with 239 electoral votes, while Harris has 228. As we move into the final months before the election, Harris is trailing. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content like this.